Welcome to Music Motors and welcome to the 2019 Volvo XC40. Now, much like Audi have their Q3, Q5 and Q7, Volvo have their XC40, XC60 and XC90, each in their own model area. So effectively, this being the baby SUV, this is in the same market as an Audi Q3. Funnily enough, if you go for a bottom end XC40, it actually only costs around £27,000. When you go for one like this, which has every option that you could possibly want, including 20-inch alloys, you're talking more about £42,000 on the road. Now, this one is powered by a 2-litre petrol engine, which produces 190 brake horsepower, 300 newton meters of torque, 8.5 to 62, and tops out at 130 miles an hour. So it's not a slow coach, but for 42 grand, you would think that it might be a little bit faster. And to be fair, there isn't much price between the T4 and the T5 engine variant. This is the T4. So in today's episode of Music Motors, I'm going to talk you through the XC40, what it's like to live with, and then let me know in the comment section below if you enjoyed it or you thought my review was utter garbage. Traffic is one of those things that you are very likely to see on a day-to-day basis, something I'm currently sat in. So as a result, one of the things that people like to know is a real-world daily town test. So what I'm about to do is reset the trip, drive a bit of town, a bit of everything, because within reason you don't just drive around town. You can commute off back roads and stuff as well. So just finding out, seeing what the total can be, the best case scenario, even though you're in traffic. So in an urban situation, Volvo claim that you should be getting between 31 to 33 miles per gallon. And as I've seen, that's not really the case, because the amount of standstill traffic I had was equal against the amount of free running I had. So really, because it's a crossover SUV, it doesn't deal with city life as well from a fuel economy point of view with this 190 brake petrol. However, the diesel, on the other hand, would probably do it with ease. Just that it's going to become more difficult to drive diesels in city centres, and the petrols aren't going to be affected by it for at least a few years, although they will eventually end up being affected because, hey, money making. So starting outside, Volvo's design language really recently has been quite beautiful, very sleek, very elegant, and even in the non-sporty models still look somewhat sporty. Fortunately, with this one being a sport, it does have 20-inch alloys. Now, those 20-inch alloys look absolutely superb, and I know I say it a lot, but these ones are great. Now, one thing I find with Volvo alloys is they don't always have a lot of protection when it comes to potholes. Now, these actually ride the road really, really well and deal with potholes pretty well, but more to that later on. The main point is you can go for the bigger alloys with this. You don't really have to worry too much about curbing them. Front end is the new Volvo design language that we've seen ever since the V90, and it's then followed on to the XC90, the V60, so on and so forth, and it is absolutely superb. The front end is blatantly Volvo, and while it's a little bit snub-nosed, it doesn't look ugly. Sometimes a snub-nosed front end looks a little bit weird. It's ended up looking really refined and brilliant. When it comes to the side of this car, the side profile's really nice. While there aren't long lines as you would expect that you do get in some Volvos, there are nice enough lines that follow and flow reasonably well. Now, when you come to the back, it's the only criticism really that I have, and it's not that the back is a bad design, it's that it just is, in comparison to the rest of the car, a little bit boring. The light clusters in the front kind of bring the whole thing together, and in the back they've done the same job, but it feels like it's missing something. We're used to having some extra handles there, something to hold on to, making it a little bit more busy. Where Volvo have left the exterior at the back a little bit less busy, it's not to my liking. It's not to say it's ugly, but I just feel like they could have done a bit more of a impressive job. This one's finished in Fusion Red, which I believe is a £750 metallic paint option. If I'm wrong, I'll put it below, but fingers crossed I got that right. So from the outside, this looks great, and actually in comparison to the rest of the SUVs that are out there, it does stand out. It does look considerably different. So really, if you want to go for something that isn't like the German rivals, then obviously you're going to go for something which isn't German, something which is Swedish. And on the outside, it tells you it's Swedish because actually at the front it's got a little Swedish flag. It's quite cute. Equipment test, knowing just how much you can fit in the back of this because it's a practical family crossover city SUV is important. So for that purpose, I'm going to see just how much of my equipment prior to a gig I can fit in the back. When you've finished with the outside and you decide to come inside, you step into something which is sort of exactly what you expected it to be, but maybe not as luxurious as you expected a Volvo to be. Because to be fair, of all the Volvos I've driven, V90, XC40, XC90, V60, the interiors tended to have quite a premium quality feel. No matter what trim level you got, they always felt really, really premium. And this one, while it doesn't feel cheap, definitely has more plastics, but they are soft touch plastics. They are extraordinarily well finished soft touch plastics. Now, the instrument cluster in front of you is the same system that you'll see in all Volvo models, and it is adaptive and can do exactly what you want it to do. The infotainment system, again, the same system that you see throughout the Volvo range, and it's very intuitive, very easy to use. I guess my only criticism would be is that if you want to look at your driver statistics and you want to look at your Apple CarPlay, you can't do both at the same time. You actually have to fiddle around a little bit. At times, a little cumbersome, but generally very easy to use. Now, the standard sound system is fantastic and is, to be honest, one of the best standard sound systems, and I'm talking about there's no option on this. This is just the one that comes with the car that you could get even if you got a £27,000 bottom end XC40. It's amazing and it's really clear. It does have a good amount of bass and it does have really good controls, where some brands will say, here's your bass, here's your treble. Volvo said, no, my customers like to have it a bit more refined. So you can have a full parametric EQ, then you can have bass and mid, and then it just does everything you could possibly want. Inside is quiet, inside is comfortable. From a driving point of view, visibility is very, very good. The steering is light, but not so light you feel totally disconnected from the road. A lovely touch. When it comes to your passengers, well, they are extraordinarily comfortable because your front passenger gets the same seat as you, which holds you and is ergonomically designed to keep you safe, comfortable, and to have good driving posture. And your rear passengers get something so spacious for such a small car that really, when it comes to a family point of view, it's absolutely fantastic. When it comes to the boot space, relatively good. While you do have quite a lot of ingress from the wheel wells, it does a relatively good job at making sure you can fit everything in. It passed my gig test, my standard gig test, but not the extended one, which was a bit of a shame for a vehicle of this size. But to be fair, I mean, I'm talking about putting a jumbo acoustic guitar in the back on top of everything else, so I guess it did pretty well. The convenience pack to be able to open the rear door just with your foot is quite handy. Around town, as I said earlier, the visibility is very, very good, and you at no point struggle to see anything that you're doing. This is a very, very good vehicle for driving around town, quite simply. And I have a feeling that's exactly why Volvo have developed this car, so it can do a bit of that as well. So here's the gigging test, and by the gigging test I mean testing this on a range of roads over a range of time periods. So today I've got a mix of A roads, motorways, B roads, traffic, just kind of everything, a proper combined run to see if this can turn around on a combined run what Volvo claim it can. Now, if it can, brilliant, and if it can't, it's not the end of the world, but I'm here to find out. So thus far, we're looking at 30.9, which isn't a great return considering the amount of motorway sat at an average speed. But let's see, at the end of the day, I'm able to go in and spend about 3 hours sat in a room. So I'll see you in 3 hours time. On to the next bit, which involves basically just motorway driving, knocking that average speed up and then seeing what we get at the other end. So after a very long journey and a bit of diversion, my initial plan got changed. 32.4 miles per gallon, which, while not the best, it is by far away from the worst. And for a vehicle of this size to be able to turn that around as a petrol variant, it's pretty impressive. It's comfortable, it's easy to drive, and I'm glad I did the journey in it. Performance-wise, 190 brake horsepower, 300 newton meters of torque, 8.5 to 62, and 130 top speed. Now, funnily enough, the T4 and the T5, while there is a little bit of separation in brake horsepower, there actually isn't much if you go for the all-wheel drive anyway, in the means of 0 to 60 time, and in the means of fuel economy as well, but I'll get to that in a minute. However, the 190 brake horsepower engine definitely feels more than decent enough when it comes to around town driving. On the motorway, however, if you want to go for a overtake, at times it can struggle. Now, for a 190 brake engine, 300 newton meters of torque, to struggle to overtake, it just gave me a little bit of a, that's a shame, because I felt like it could do so much more. But I guess at the end of the day, this is an all-wheel drive, it is an SUV effectively, and it does weigh a bit. So you've got to give it its dues, it does pretty well. Now, when it comes to back road handling, it's really surprisingly composed. You do get a bit of roll, and the steering isn't exactly connected like you would have on a track car, but at the same time, it gives you more steering response than most of the Volkswagen competitors. Pedal feel is reasonably good, with the brakes being extraordinarily punchy. The 20-inch alloys definitely ride the road well, and surprisingly, don't railroad you at all. Back roads can really be fun, and when it comes to going a little bit faster, you don't feel like you're going to roll over. It just grips and does what it needs to do, which is lovely when it comes to a car like this. Economy is one of those things that's it's a little bit of annoyance, because realistically, when you look between the T4 and the T5, there isn't really much in it when it comes to economy. Now, they claim that this on a run combined can get 33, and that's totally achievable, but it's a real shame that they couldn't squeeze more out of it. I've always known Volvo to be super great at making frugal cars, and I just feel like they've gone slightly backwards just to make sure that you get better emissions. However, on a run, you can see up to about 38 if you're very lucky. A combined run, you'll see about 31 real world, and around town, expect to see about 24 to 26 realistically. And this is out of a petrol. If you want the fuel economy out of this, go for the diesel, because it will give you substantially more. However, the petrol engine is actually surprisingly torquey and quite fun to play around with on back roads, but from an economy point of view, maybe isn't the best. And if you're between the T4 and the T5, you might as well go for the T5, because you do get a bit more power and the economy is basically the same, although it does depend just how heavy your right foot is. So, the 2019 Volvo XC40, how is it? So for £42,000 on the road for the best part of, I think it's a very good quality car. I think it's built exceptionally well and it looks fantastic. When it comes to your interior amenities, I don't think there is a more comfortable and especially safe competitor out there. This is unquestionably safe constantly. It is a real pleasure to be inside, quiet and easy to drive on a run. When it comes to your load capability and when it comes to family practicality, it's more than capable to do anything that realistically you're going to throw it at. Performance-wise, I really enjoyed it, and to summarise, I was quite surprised by just how well it did on back roads. And while the economy wasn't the best, it's definitely far away from being the worst. If you really want good fuel economy, then without question, you will go for the D4. The economy that's going to turn around is going to be brilliant, and then within reason, power is going to be the same. If anything, it would probably feel a little bit quicker around town, because diesels like to rev a little bit more in the bottom end. I found the XC40 easy, great looking, and definitely nailed in the way that you would expect Volvo to do it. They have absolutely finished this exactly as you want. And truly, if you want something German, you'll go for something German. But if you want something differently refined and bundled with technology, I mean, for instance, the headlights are so bright and adaptive, you will literally blind oncoming drivers, even with dip beam, then you'll get one of these. Because this is so typically Volvo and refined and finished. If you want that, you will not want to look anywhere else.